I am sure that many of you were also taught by your parents to say the so-called magic words whenever the occasion calls for it. Words like please, thank you, sorry, you're welcome, etc. Please. Please is supposed to be a basic expression of politeness when asking for anything from anybody. It means you are not demanding it as an entitlement. Thank you, on the other hand, is an expression of politeness when you receive what you ask for. It is impolite to just run away with a gift. Were we not asked by our parents, especially on Christmas Day, when we received gifts or aguinaldo from our godparents, the typical question of parents, oh, what are you supposed to say, anak? We were taught to recognize the gift and to acknowledge the giver by saying, thank you po. Our gospel today tells us one of the 10 lepers returned to thank Jesus for the grace of healing that he had received. He was a Samaritan. St. Luke tells us Jesus asked where the other 9 were. I don't think he was just reacting like a parent who is disappointed when his children forget the magic word. I am more inclined to believe that he was also expressing some sadness, that these 10 were united in suffering the disease together. No distinction between Jews and Samaritans while they were sick. Now that they are healed, they part ways again. But let's go back to the question, where are the other 9? My answer to that is, well, they just did as they were told. Remember, Jesus said, go, show yourselves to the priests. And that instruction is in the book of Leviticus, chapter 14. If the leper feels that he or she is cured already of the disease, they have to be inspected by a priest outside the camp. If the person is really well already, after the priest's evaluation, well, he continues to stay outside the village for another 7 days. Parang quarantine natin, no? They complete the quarantine. I think it was the Jews who sort of invented the idea of quarantine. And then he would present himself to the priests again in order to offer a sacrifice and receive the permission to re-enter the village, meaning to reintegrate with the community and reunite with the family. I imagine the Samaritan being left behind after receiving the instruction. Natural. Why would the Samaritan enter the Jerusalem temple? Go show yourselves to the priest. That applied only to the Jews among them. You see, even if they worship the same God, because Samaritans worshipped Yahweh as well, they also read the Pentateuch. The Samaritans and the Jews did not see eye to eye with each other about faith and religion. And so, when they were told to go, to have themselves inspected by the priests, well, for the Samaritan, that simply meant hindi siya kasali. He was not included. Remember that Canaanite woman who was being ignored by the disciples because she was a pagan. Or remember how Jesus himself said, I have come only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, according to Matthew. Unlike that Canaanite woman who remained persistent even when she was being excluded, this Samaritan leper seemed more resigned. about his exclusion. And so you can imagine his surprise when he realizes that he is also healed. Ah, kasama pala ako? He is also healed. And Luke says, realizing that he had been healed, he returned and thanked Jesus. Is it possible that the other 9 had also been healed already on the way, but had not yet realized it? After all, they were just doing as they had been instructed. They were waiting for the priest to tell them that they were well. But the Samaritan did not wait for that. He just looked at himself and realized he was well. You know, I have seen people who are very gifted and just take it for granted. Or people who are not even aware of how gifted they are until somebody tells them or calls their attention about it through comments like, "Wow, ang galing mo naman kumanta. What a voice you have there." Or, "When did you learn to dance like that?" Or, "Ang galing, this painting of yours is extraordinary. Ikaw ba talagang gumawa niyan?" Or, "Has anybody ever told you that you write so well?" Sometimes it takes another person. Sometimes people are not even aware of their gifts until other people tell them. The word gratitude, which means thankfulness, comes from the root word gratia, which means grace, as we all know. It means thankfulness. Or gratitude begins with a recognition of the gratia, a recognition of grace, what St. Luke calls a realization, in the case of the Samaritan leper in the Gospel. If the Samaritan had wallowed in self-pity for his apparent exclusion, he would probably not have realized the grace that had already come upon him. Ewan ko kung narinig nyo na yung kwento. Have you ever heard of that story about a driver who received a pair of gloves as a gift from his employer on Christmas Day? He had earlier heard na yung boss niya had given both the cook and his secretary ng tagfa 5,000 pesos each. And so, dahil driver siya, he was expecting a little more. But what he got was just a pair of gloves. He was so disappointed. You know what he did? He threw the box containing the gloves into a bonfire and allowed them to burn. The following day, his boss said, "Oh, nakita mo na ba yung regalo ko? Nabuksan mo na? Have you opened the gift? Did you like the gloves that I gave you for Christmas?" He said, "Yes, sir." And the boss said, "Did you try them on?" And he said, "Yes, sir. The size is okay." And the boss said, "I hope you found the 10,000 pesos inside." You know, it took me a while rolling each bill and putting each one of them in the fingers of the gloves. And of course, the driver wanted to pass out. He was speechless. How many times have we prayed to God for certain things and never realized that our prayers had long been granted already? In Filipino, may kasabihan, "Huwag mong ipagwawalang bahala ang grasya kung ayaw mong lumabo ang iyong mga mata." And the close English translation for that is, "Don't turn a blind eye on grace if you don't want your eyes ever to grow dim." Luke is telling us that it was at the breaking of the bread that the two disciples recognized Jesus. Dear brothers and sisters, may this Eucharist be an occasion for our eyes to be opened to the gracious act of God in the Lord Jesus Christ.